Parents, look, if you've ever been jolted awake by your child screaming in pain from another ear infection, you know the kind of heartbreak and helplessness that words cannot fully describe because you run into your room. You're holding them close. You're Googling symptoms at 2 a.m., praying that it's not something worse. And by the morning, you're back in the pediatrician's office. Another round of antibiotics, another recommendation to wait and see, or worse, it's the referral for tubes, tonsils, and adenoids. But what if I told you that this pattern's not random? What if it's not bad luck, but a stressed and misfiring nervous system that's been ignored since day one? Because this video is going to be for parents and moms and dads who are done feeling dismissed. The ones that have tried everything, antibiotics and tubes and Google searches and garlic oil and ozone and colloidal silver and all of the things, but still feel like they're stuck in a loop with zero answers. So this one's for the parents who know deep down that there has to be another way, because you're not crazy and you're absolutely not alone in this journey. So we're going to uncover what most pediatricians never talk about. How nervous system dysfunction and stress and subluxation are often the real root cause of chronic ear infections. So you're going to learn why antibiotics often fail. Why ear tubes are a short-term patch that don't address the real root cause. How stress and trauma in early life patterns create a perfect storm of events within our nervous system, within our immune system, wreaking havoc on the gut and everything else. And how neurologically focused chiropractic care doesn't just manage the symptoms, but it breaks that cycle completely. I want to introduce you to a couple of stories. And for some reason, all of their names start with the letter L. So Luca, Lebga, Landry, all three kiddos came into the office around the same time, same ages as well. Recurring ear infections. More rounds of antibiotics than they could even count. And it was cycle after cycle after cycle after cycle. And after these families, these moms had brought these kiddos separately, separate families, it got to the point where it was 5 ear infections in 4 months. They would do an antibiotic and then it would come back the week after antibiotics were finished. And so this cycle, every cold, every sniffle turned into pain and fevers and sleepless households because antibiotics would work briefly but stop. And then the pediatricians all suggested ENT consults, tubes, adenoid removal, tonsils. But before going down that road, all 3 of their moms had found us. So what we did for every kiddo, we sat down. We had a deep understanding of their case history. What was pregnancy like? What was birth like? What was early life challenges? And then we did the neurological insight scans. And what we saw wasn't just ear issues in these 3 kiddos. The nervous system was on red alert, stuck in stress mode, with signals jammed, drainage blocked, and immune function suppressed. And after a series of gentle, specific, neurologically focused chiropractic care and the adjustments that come with it, something shifted for all 3 kids. Not only did the ear infections stop, they never came back. Luca, Lebga, and Landry, they all started sleeping better. They were hanging out, they were calm, they were chill, happier, stronger, and healthier overall. Because that's the power of addressing the actual system and not just the symptom. But let's talk real root causes. So yes, ear anatomy matters. But if that were the whole story, every single child would struggle with ear infections until age 7. But they don't. So what's different? It's not just about ear structure. Because yes, the ear tubes sit like this until about age 7. And then they start doing this. So that's easier for them to drain. But again, it's not about the structure. It's about neurological function, specifically the vagus nerve and the nerves that regulate drainage of our eustachian tubes. And when these nerves and these muscles are impacted, disrupted, and altered by stress and subluxation, they misfire. But the result of it all is that drainage backs up. The inflammation significantly rises, our immunity drops. And this is the triple threat behind chronic ear infections. And it lives in the nervous system, not in the ear. So these patterns don't start overnight though. It doesn't start with an ear infection. They often begin with early childhood stressors, going back to pregnancy, going back to birth interventions like C-sections, like forceps, like vacuums, things that manually are pulling onto the head and neck. Issues like NICU trauma and multiple antibiotics and changes or disruption in feeding and respiratory problems. But then those things stack. The early falls, the food allergies and intolerances, the chemical overload from our food, our water, our air, the emotional stress load. And yes, even the overuse of the antibiotics themselves. Each layer chips away at the body's ability to adapt and to heal. And eventually the system breaks and the same infections repeat over and over and over. But let's be honest about the limitations of conventional care. Modern medicine is running the same two plays on repeat. Antibiotics, despite that most ear infections are viral, so antibiotics aren't going to do anything for that. And then tubes, because despite the fact that they don't address the root cause, let's just throw something in there that's going to allow things to drain a little bit better. But let's completely miss the fact that it's going to create ear issues like Meniere's or vertigo or those types of things later on in life. But in fact, let's go back to antibiotics, because 25% of the antibiotics prescribed to children are for ear infections. That's all antibiotics. But even those studies show they rarely provide lasting resolution. So ear tubes might help drain fluid temporarily, but if that neurological dysfunction remains, the problems persist. So you don't need a patch, you need a reset. So how neurologically focused care breaks the cycle? We don't chase infections. We look upstream. We scan the nervous system using the CLA Insight scans to be able to identify where stress is stuck and signals are jammed. So we focus on the upper cervical spine. We focus on the impact to our vagus nerve, as well as the tension patterns within our cranium, because that influences our ears too. So the gentle adjustments within care restore proper neurological function, allowing the ears to drain, the immune system to regulate, and the inflammation to calm naturally. There's no drugs, there's no surgery, there's no band-aids. And just like Luca, Lebga, and Landry's moms, you deserve to feel empowered and not panicked. You deserve to look at your child and trust that their body is capable of healing. And your child deserves to thrive and rest without the burden of constant illness. So at Haven Family Chiropractic, we've helped hundreds of kiddos, just like Luca, Lebga, and Landry, be able to reclaim their health through neurologically focused care. So schedule your consultation and the comprehensive scan in our office today. So click the link in our bio or call our office line directly, because this isn't just about the ears. It's about restoring peace and power and possibility.